like to call to order the Monday, October 2nd, public hearing to the City of Tampa's Architectural Review Commission. Welcome, everyone. I'm Brent Taylor, Vice Chair. I'll be acting chair of the commission tonight. If you are here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. The staff will then present the staff report. After that, we'll ask for public comment. Following the presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. Please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project, because your time will be limited to 3 minutes. So take time now to summarize your comments, because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the City Ordinance, Chapter 27 of the City Zoning Code, the Design Guidelines, the Secretary of Interior Standards, Historic Preservation Development Review, or HPDRC, comments, and the testimony given at the public hearing. The ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owners, agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence all cell phones. I'm reading the thing. All right, so now I'll introduce my commissioners, starting on my left.
My name is John Prokop. I practice architecture.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Sutton. I'm a registered architect. I also hold the architectural historian chair for this commission.
My name is Dan Myers. I also am an architect.
And I'm Brent Taylor. I'm a general contractor. We also have with us here tonight our city staff: Dennis Fernandez, Ron Vila, Elaine Lunn, Alexis Guzman, and our attorney, Dana Crosby Collier. Do we need to get a motion to receive the minutes from last month?
Yeah, we'll need a motion for the September minutes to approve those.
I wish to move that this commission accept the Architectural Review Commission public hearing meeting minutes for the meeting of Monday, September 11th, 2023, and the meeting of Wednesday, September 13th, 2023, as presented.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, Commissioners. Just a couple of brief announcements. I'm Dennis Fernandez, Architectural Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Welcome to this evening's hearing. We will be also holding a hearing on Wednesday, October 4th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. to address the remaining applications for this cycle. That being said, we do have the 2024 Architecture Review Commission schedule that's been provided to you. I believe that's been sent digitally to you, but if not, please let us know. We'll provide that to you again. Please note the public hearing dates beginning in January 2024 on your calendars. And if there's any conflicts, if you would let us know, we'd appreciate that. With that being said, we will now turn to the disclosure of conflicts of interest and ex parte communication, and our legal counsel, Dana Crosby Collier, will lead that discussion.
Good evening, Commissioners. I need to ask if any member of the Commission has a conflict of interest with any item on the agenda this evening.
None.
None.
Thank you. Has any member engaged in an ex parte communication regarding any item on the agenda this evening?
I have
I
none.
have none.
Thank you so much.
Moving on to continuations, we have we have one continuation that we'll need a motion for, and two essentially disclosures. I'll begin with the disclosures. ARC 23180, TACPA 2305 for the property at 110 East Oakland Avenue, 1813 North Franklin Street, 1708 North Florida Avenue. 1905 and 1909 North Florida Avenue, has requested to continue because they have exceeded the amount of continuations that are allowed under our rules. They will have to renotice. That is for the comp plan amendment recommendation only, so I do not need a motion for that. Also, ARC 23204 for the property at 2809 North Central Avenue. They did have an incomplete application. They also have exceeded the number of continuations, so they will have to renotice as well. So anyone who's tracking those cases will not be heard, and renoticing will be required before they're placed on the agenda again. One case that we do need to motion this evening is ARC 23-389, REZ 23-82, which is the rezoning portion of the case that I just referenced. That is for the properties at 110 East Oak, 1813 North Franklin Street, 1708, 1905, and 1909 North Florida Avenue. The agent has requested to continue this to the Wednesday, November 8th, 2023 public hearing at 5:30 p.m. If we could get a motion on that.
I move to continue ARC 23-389/REZ 23-82 located at 110 East Oak Avenue, 1813 North Franklin, 1708, 1905, and 1909 North Florida Avenue to the Wednesday, November 8th, 2023 public hearing at 5:30 p.m.
I will second that motion.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Moving on, we'll now administer the swear-in. Anyone in the audience who's going to be providing testimony or presenting this evening, in addition to staff, if you would please stand and raise your right hand for the swear-in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are providing today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. And with that, we are ready for our first case, and Ms. Lund will introduce the case.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. The first item that's on the agenda tonight is case number ARC 23-202 for the addresses 505 and 505.5 East Palm Avenue in the Tampa Heights Historic District. This application has been continued from a previous ARC hearing on August 9th of this year. At that time, the application included a variance request, which was denied by this board, and it also included a certificate of appropriateness request, which was continued to this evening's hearing. The variance is no longer attached to the case, so there will be no review for that this evening, just the request for the certificate of appropriateness. There's also a letter in your packets addressing this case, and I believe it addresses a feature of the project that has changed since this case came before you in August. So with that, this is an application for a small addition to the primary structure, a second primary structure, and an accessory structure with site improvements. And I will move into the photo presentation here. This is the map of the Tampa Heights Historic District. The subject property is located in the southeast portion of the district. It's highlighted in green. This is the 1920s Sanborn map of the subject site, again shown in green, at the corner of Palm Avenue and Central Avenue. And the red line there is showing you the location of the local historic district boundary. And again, this is the subject site highlighted in green. And again, at the corner of Palm Avenue and Central Avenue, the southeast corner, this is the present day aerial of the site. The subject building was built circa 1945, so that's why it did not appear on the 1920 Sanborn map. But here it is. This is the primary structure on the site and the accessory structure on the site, which is slated for demolition. This accessory structure is not contributing, but the primary structure is. This is a view of the existing accessory structure, and that's the east side of the primary structure. This is the west side of the primary structure. And moving to the rear, the south side of the structure. Looking around, there is an alley directly to the north of the subject site, and then this contributing structure to the east of the alley. South of the site, there is a vacant lot. This is property owned by the Florida Department of Transportation. Looking across Central Avenue to the west, there is a vacant lot. And then looking across to the north, there is another vacant lot with, you can see contributing structures to the district in the background there. This is the view looking north along Central Avenue. And the view looking south on Central, so the subject site would be to your left here in this photo. This is looking east along Palm Avenue. And then finally, the view looking west along Palm Avenue, and the subject site would be to your left. So with that, I will request that the applicant come forward and present the application.
Good evening, Ralph Schuler, 2401 North Howard Avenue, and I have been sworn. I was here a couple months ago. We requested a variance. That variance has been rescinded. We're going to show you a design today that doesn't require a variance. Also, we've changed the design to include essentially a new primary structure, a new accessory structure, and a small porch addition to the rear. The primary structure, which is existing, is here. We're talking about adding a small open porch on 3 sides to the rear, so no new interior square footage of the existing house, just a porch. Currently, as you saw, there's a 2-story non-contributing accessory structure here that is in extremely poor condition. It's been reviewed and deemed for demolition, for lack of a better word. But what we will do is, the only thing holding the building up is literally the exterior brick veneer. We're going to save the brick veneer and try and reuse it for both this building and portions of the new primary structure. So this structure is basically a garage, and the client works from home, his office, and a small porch facing south. There's an existing unimproved alley here. There's an existing empty lot here that's owned by the DOT. As you saw previously, there's an empty lot to the west, an empty lot to the north, and there's a small non-contributing structure to the northwest. So currently, this is where a similar driveway is. We're going to improve and redo that driveway. The existing driveway is in poor condition. And then we have a new 2-unit, 1-bedroom flat here. That's 2 stories, so it'll be 2 units. And then its associated driveway and parking here off of North Central. These are just the existing elevations which you saw in the photo essay as they exist today. So we'll start with the Palm Avenue elevation. Essentially, the front of the existing building will not change. We're going to add 1-story, 720 square foot accessory structure here. It'll be no taller than 15 feet, and you saw on the site plan it's set very far back, 60 plus feet back from the primary setback of the house. Looking west at the west or central Avenue elevation. Again, none of this Central Avenue of the primary structure changes beyond, which is, this is the new roof and column of what would be the back porch. And then between that and the new new second primary structure is the facade of that. So it would be brick, hardy board lap siding, stucco base, and the same shingle that's on the existing house. This house has a new roof of about 2 years old. It's a gray dimensional shingle roof. And so we would again try and use this brick from the existing accessory structure and collect those and reuse those for the new second primary structure. This is facing east, which is facing that unimproved alley. None of this of the house changes. The only thing that changes is this back porch again with a column, a new hip roof, like the rest of the building is hip roofs. And then the accessory structure facing east has just one single window, which is in the bathroom. Most of this is garage, and again, it's only 3 feet from the property line. Here are the other elevations of the second primary structure. Again, this is a 2-unit, one single flat style building. The west we saw previously with showing it in context with the house. The south, which would be facing the driveway. Here, there's a second entrance up to a staircase that gets you to essentially what is a flipped entrance on this side, so again, how the plan works. Looking north, which would be facing the existing primary structure house here, and then facing east, which would be inward in towards the backyard here. Again, relatively simple structure with hardy board siding, trim, details, normal to a vernacular style building, wood vernacular building, but we are trying to tie that in again with our brick pump out here in the front. That would be the same brick that we're using then also for the accessory structure, this is accessory structure facing west, which is again internal to the backyard. And then lastly, here's the rear elevation, which is facing south, and this is the accessory structure here with this porch and double French doors, and then the back porch with wrapped columns out of hardy and a hip roof that matches the rest of the building. The typical detail here and what's currently on the building is a brick veneer. I believe the primary or the current structure is a wood structure but we're gonna on both buildings, the first floor would be masonry clad with a brick veneer, and then there is a frieze detail and a soffit detail that we're matching. Currently, the building is wrapped in aluminum. We propose to take all that off and try and bring it back to the wood. So the new accessory structure and the primary structure would all that would come off. We'd redo it, and the fascia, the soffit, and the frieze board would all be replaced to more appropriate material. The existing building, of course, has steel windows. We don't propose to do that. They're very hard to get, and wouldn't be appropriate for the style of this accessory. I'm sorry, of the second primary structure. We are planning on using and I'll bring those here, more of a standard 1/1 style vinyl clad or vinyl window. Here's the roof plan. Roof plan, again, the existing structure is here. Our new hip back porch is here. Our new hip accessory structure / garage is here. And then our new second primary structure. All of this, of course, is in a RM24 zoning currently, and a land use that's R93. So very, very dense. All of this meets required and current zoning codes. Just for reference, this is how the second primary structure works. You have a front door here, and then a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, and then you come up the stairs to the second turn, and it's essentially the same 1-bedroom, 1-bath, but mirrored. Just so maybe you didn't see that, and I'll zoom in on there, but you can see what's there currently is these aluminum fascias, soffits, and frieze board. We're going to propose to redo that. Same thing here for reference. This is, you can see those are existing original windows. This structure I only wanted to show mainly because we have quite a bit of brick here. I have not inventoried all of the brick, but doing a quick math, it looks like what we're proposing, there would be enough brick here left over to wrap the entire new accessory structure and the face of the second primary structure as proposed. And again, that's interior basically of that building is complete water damage and termite damage. Also wanted to give some examples of other structures within the district or other properties that have a similar configuration. This is on Morgan and Park, about 2 blocks away. There's a primary structure here, a first accessory structure here, and a second accessory structure there. I don't know if this was a garage at one time previously, but that's currently, it's basically 2 units and a primary structure. That's the front of that. This is in the same zoning, which is RM24. This is a similar style, post-World War II building. Again, it's in the district. They have 4 units on the rear with parking, with garages below. There's another picture of that. Many of you are probably aware of that. That's the only kind of, with this and one other site, which I'm going to show you quickly, is the only other house in the district. So really those 2 houses and the one presenting today are the only houses in the district that are post-World War II ranch, 1-story brick buildings. This one actually has an attached garage, which is probably the only one in the district like that. Our front garage, proposing a Clopay carriage-style garage. It matches the elevations. Matches the elevations shown on for that. This is a Sierra Pacific new vinyl window. That's I believe that's a double hung version. That's what we propose to use. There's an existing gooseneck on the site now. We propose to use new goosenecks at the carriage entrances and at the entrances of all the primary structure front doors. Currently there's wrought iron and or black hardware. I'd like to mimic that. Typical details that we've used in the past for how the windows are set in. And again, we would between the wood and the masonry versions of the same single hung or double hung window. In conclusion, it's a kind of a unique little project in Tampa Heights. It's kind of nothing exactly like it, but we've tried to marry what is a very large site, my client's wishes to get a little bit more use out of the site, as it is 10,000 square feet, and keep a contributing house and improve the house to meet the new standards of the neighborhood. And with that, I'll take your questions.
And now we'll listen to our staff report.
Commissioner, staff finds that this application is consistent with the Tampa Heights design guidelines. I have no further comments, so I'm available for your questions as well. Thank you.
Okay, now we have time for public comment. Seeing no one in the room, I would assume there's no one. So we'll move on to our questions from the commissioners, and we'll start on the right.
Question, are you replacing the columns on the front porch?
No,
Of the-
no, we are not.
Okay, because they're,
They're wrought iron currently,
Yeah.
and we would leave them wrought iron. It's just, on the rear, we didn't feel like it was appropriate and or hard to get new wrought iron, so we're trying just to do a simple boxed out column.
okay. You certainly have latitude to make a column there that is not a box column, right?
On the rear, you're talking about at the front?
On the rear.
Okay, yes. Yeah, I mean, we would wrap it in hardy and make it, something a little, the little cap and a little base, but
Oh, yeah.
nothing too crazy.
See, I'm always in favor of crazy.
Okay, good, good.
So another metal column of some sort would
Right.
not be, it is-
Inappropriate.
It is compatible with that is on the front, right?
Right.
And then the use of the brick. I'm a little bit concerned about that.
Okay.
I mean, there's something about, because it doesn't seem to work really well, just the one panel on the front,
I'm talking about
on
the
the new primary
Okay.
building.
Well, so to be frank, we were trying to not make the second primary structure too foreign to the architecture, but at the same token, an all brick building is very expensive, and frankly, there's plenty of other, and I showed some of the two extra examples that have different architectural styles than the primary structure. So we're trying to marry that concept where you have a second primary structure that may or may not look exactly like the primary, but tied again, at least in some capacity. So that's where the brick
Sure.
came in. Now we can discuss that, I guess.
Yeah, because the brick in the accessory structure, now, are you able to reuse some of the walls without, like, completely taking them
No,
apart?
I didn't show any pictures, but it is amazing and still standing. Everything inside of that brick shell is completely and utterly deteriorated. There's
Right.
no floor. I mean, it's pretty bad.
So, but so in order to use that brick, you're actually taking the wall down, right?
Right. Now, again, we're gonna see how that goes, and if it doesn't go real successfully, we'll have to end up using new brick. But the concept is that we're gonna try and disassemble that carefully and, stack the brick on site.
There certainly is a precedent in the district, I believe, where you would use because brick was always seen as a more permanent and more expensive material, so that an accessory building could be of a different material. Then that would free up whatever brick that you're saving from that building to put on your
Oh, I see what you're trying to
second
say.
your second primary.
I don't believe we have enough brick, frankly, doing the math, even though it's a two-story building, it's a smaller building than the second primary. So I don't think that scenario works in that respect.
But there's also the possibility that you could use brick, there's also, brick on the first floor, frame on the second.
Correct. I understand. We could do a partial brick or an all brick first floor and some other material, i.e. siding on the second floor. That's obviously not what we've presented today.
Right, okay. And I'll let someone else touch on the proportions of the windows, so I'll pass.
Commissioner Sutton?
I would like to revisit fellow commissioners' questions regarding the brick. I understand your working concept for, bringing some of that brick into your second primary structure. And I'm wondering if it's not that the idea is wrong. I think it's the presentation of the idea that's kind of like shaking on legs. The question of just doing a lower floor, and I was thinking of just a water table in itself.
Okay.
With the frame and above. Have you looked at some of these other alternative uses for that brick on that structure? Because the way you have it presented, to me, strikes as a very contemporary way of handling a block with this one bump out of a totally different material. It seems
understand.
totally foreign to the rest of this assembly that you have on site, which is much more traditional.
Well, yeah, again, it's a unique building. I mean, we don't have a water table. Obviously, it's a one-story brick, ranch-style house, and I agree that a water table could be appropriate in some instances. Again, it's a post-World War II house. I'm honestly open to, together we would think it's a good direction. But the original design intent and the reason what we're presenting today is I felt that either a one-story all brick with a two-story on top of it, I actually think could have some merits. That the water table, for this style of architecture, I'm not sure that that's compatible, but again, certainly worth talking about. And then we were trying to, yes, create a simple design because the house itself is, other than this little bay window and it's pretty straightforward, simple design. So we're trying to make that compatible. So, that's kind of how we got there.
Have you examined particular moisture issues with the use of brick veneer below grade, as you show on your building?
Yeah, I mean,
sections?
yes. That is a schematic, but yes, we would grout this and have weep holes here to allow, with a 1-inch air gap to get that to work properly.
And because, brick does a very marvelous job of absorbing moisture and transferring it
does.
to everything else around it. One of the items that I've used personally in the past is to use concrete masonry below grade.
Yeah, I mean,
and brick at grade beyond.
This is more on the general idea, but I
General
understand and I appreciate your comments.
Can we go to your rear porch, please? We know we discussed the idea of what you're doing with the columns, but can you bring up to us what you're planning to do with that deck and that ceiling?
Yes, so the floor would be a concrete at minimum, but we probably mimic what's on the front porch, which is a brick paver.
Mm-hmm.
So we would, mimic the brick paver on the rear. I don't think I have a picture of it very well. It's like a terracotta brick, a lighter brick than the actual brick on the wall. And then the ceiling would be a beadboard ceiling.
A beadboard ceiling?
Right.
Are you expecting to have anything else involved with that ceiling, such as pendant type fixtures, light fixtures, or a fan?
Yeah,
or anything else of that nature at this point in time?
Probably just a fan and some can lights. I can certainly add that and have that reviewed by staff as needed.
Mm-hmm. Overhang. We have an existing building that has an existing overhang. Can you review with us what you're dealing with? We understand your refinishing of that, but what is the dimensional constant for that? And how does that relate to the accessory structure and the second primary.
They're all supposed to be the same. They're all about 16 inches, so, maybe 15 inches, somewhere in that general vicinity. And, you know, what we would match the primary structure with the accessory structure and also the second primary structure was the intent.
And all with a flat horizontal soffit.
Yes, sir. I would prefer to do hardy board, but on the contributing structure, certainly work with staff if that's an acceptable solution or not. But on the two new structures, hardy board would be.
No, I think we would have to use a more traditional material on the contributing structure. So how that translates to what you use for the others is actually, you know.
Yeah, I mean.
You know, a more diminutive sort of a product would be, I think, entirely appropriate.
Okay, yeah, I mean, again, white painted wood is essentially what we're going, which is what I think was there, and it's just currently clad in aluminum.
And I also assume that both for the accessory structure and as well as the primary, secondary structure, that we're dealing with slab-on-grade construction.
Well, so this is going to be up a little bit. I have shown it up, 12 to 16 inches. There is actually a little bit of fall from front to back on this lot. So, and then the second primary structure, I have 20 inches, so there's 3 steps into the above grade.
Okay. Because that doesn't seem too terribly apparent with respect to the information on these plans, or at least that we can see on these plans as they're presented.
I understand, but yes, the intent, and there's on the wall sections, on the elevations, I think I make reference to that, but we can certainly investigate that again. But the intent is 3 steps and/or 20 inches.
That is all I have for this moment.
Could you bring up there you go. You read my mind. And I kind of understand, I mean, this is a new structure. It's not, it's not a post-World War II structure. And taking the brick vertically kind of orients, or accents the fact that this is a taller primary structure. What I do want to question or ask is, what was the philosophy behind all the window types?
So we have egress windows, of course, and maybe a couple of these are a little fat. We can certainly make them deeper to get, but so we have a bedroom essentially. This is the bedroom. That's the egress window for the bedroom. All of these other windows here and here on the first floor would be, it's a living room. So those are probably better proportioned, but maybe not at perfect. And this is a kitchen. This is a bathroom. So they're appropriately
How about the
sized.
west elevation?
On the first floor, this is a kitchen window between a range and a refrigerator. This is, of course, above a shower. I wanted to put a window here, so the only way we could do that is in the shower, because I can show you what the shower. And then again upstairs, this is another window in the
Okay.
kitchen.
So I understand the purposes or the locations of all of them, what kind of spaces they're in, but I count 8 different windows
Okay.
on basically 3 elevations. There's 8 different windows out of 13 windows. And
Okay.
I didn't know if there was just a philosophy to that. Like, I mean, I'll do crazy stuff sometimes too. But yes, it would be nice that, that if you're gonna put a square because it's in a bathroom, then the other ones get a square, or
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand where you're going.
a
Yes.
little bit more consistency, because it looks a little haphazard. Does that reflect what my
Yes.
fellow commissioner was referring to?
Yes, and the contributing structure has very generous windows. and they're, you know, they have a kind of particular ratio of height to
Correct.
width.
Agreed.
And none of these seem to join into that program.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't have a problem with being a different thing, because it's a different primary structure, it's a two-story structure, it's a different orientation, and the windows can be more vertically oriented than the other primary structure, which is more horizontally oriented. I just think there's a little more
refinement,
consistency that could occur.
understood.
Have you been able to take any of the aluminum frieze band off
I have not yet, no.
to look to see what was there, what it is?
I
you
I
know?
mean, pretty certain it's gonna just be a wood that's probably
Okay.
deteriorated, more than
Okay.
likely.
Be lovely if it was like carved stone or something back there, wouldn't it?
Probably unlikely, but yes.
I think that's about it. We'll,
Right.
you know, we'll deal with the fan and whatnot
Right.
in a motion.
Can you pull up the site plan, please?
I think it's underneath you. There it is.
So that setback there to the rear of the, well, I guess that would be the side, but the,
You push that up a little bit so we can see the whole site?
See, I can see it, but I
All
guess
right.
you can't.
All right, I thought that was the setback line as opposed to the site.
Yeah, so if you're looking at the south setback, is that what you're asking
I'm
about?
trying to figure out what that meant, or what is the setback there on that side of the yard?
From here to here is
Correct.
a minimum of 20 feet. It's 20 feet 8 inches as displayed. And then the setback, because the front is considered here per zoning, so 7 feet and 20 feet, which is essentially where this building begins. And there's 5 foot eave to eave here on the north to the south between the two structures.
Okay. Well, there's no way to shift it then.
5 feet here also and 5 feet here. It's
Yeah.
it's tight.
You're counting on a precise builder.
Well, again,
So was there ever a thought to put the two-story structure where it currently is a two-story structure and the smaller structure being the secondary?
Sure. Requires a variance.
Okay. All right, my next question is gonna be back to the conversation of the brick, and I think that that's really just gonna come down to preference, but the brick that's there looks to be, I mean, haven't seen it up close, but it looks just to be a red common
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
brick. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure of the dimensions of it, but I would think that you would be able to find something very comparable to it even today.
I agree. Certainly nothing, crazy, special about it, I agree.
So I think it's something we can take up in discussion, but are you open to ideas there, I guess is the question.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have at this time. Anybody else have any more questions?
I do not.
No.
All right, so we will close that portion, and now you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Well, there's always more than one solution here, obviously. I know that. And we tried to come here last time and ask for a variance. We didn't get it. So we're here presenting to you a project that requires no variance. With a one-story accessory that's essentially in this similar location as the current one. And then, of course, I don't think any of us has any issues with a rear porch, which on a building that has no rear porch. And the accessory structure, the second primary structure, how it functions, how it looks, I think with me and the client, we looked at it, and I don't disagree that we can refine these sizes of windows, but essentially it's just pretty straightforward, simple building. We were trying to make the, even though it's a second primary structure, still somewhat subordinate to the, of course, the size and scale and massing of the first primary structure as it sits on the lot. The lot, it sets back pretty far on both Central and Ross. And then, of course, moving south here is for the foreseeable future, decades, it's gonna be nothing but a DOT empty lot with, as proposed, supposedly pickleball courts and dog walking. But, so, we're trying to marry all of this together. Happy to take any of your suggestions. Would certainly love to have, give me some greater feedback. I'm happy to work with staff on refinements, and looking forward to doing that. If for some reason we can't get there, it is what it is, and we'll come back. But we'd really prefer to have good constructive criticism on the design presented today, and so we can move forward with this. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll now close the public hearing and discuss. Anyone want to start?
I just want to make a quick touch base on the item of reusing the brick. Been there, I've done that before. It is a difficult and dirty project, and a significant portion of what you intend to reuse may be damaged in the process.
It's broken.
To the
Right,
point
yeah, no,
where it
Yeah.
cannot be used anymore.
And to get mortar off of it and the labor involved.
And-
all
It may not be
And-
cost effective, I understand.
And it may not be cost effective, and you in fact have a very limited inventory of brick available to you that you plan to do quite an awful lot with.
Understood.
The prospect of the difficulty and the costs involved may warrant a fresh brick product to do this job for you, and that might also change how you actually want to use that brick for both the accessory and primary too. That's just my initial comment on that whole matter. But yes, we have lost a lot of brick in the process of trying to reuse it.
Just changing the brick out, honestly, between us and us commissioners, would changing the brick out to a new close matching brick that staff would approve change whether or not we would agree to this proposal?
I don't think that would be an issue at all. For his purposes, though, that might change how much brick he uses and where he decides to use it. Okay, so that's a different, that's a
Right.
coordination item that staff might have to reconsider for a representation at some point in time.
They might, but if we approve something that says this is the quantity of brick involved, and that's part of our approval, then it has to be that quantity of brick involved, whether it's new brick or reused brick. Whether it's new or reused brick, I think it's his.
That's his call. That's
Decision.
correct.
We're just approving a design as presented, whether it's that brick or some other brick that staff can approve as a close matching brick, correct?
Yeah, and I think that
I can agree with
the,
that.
the amount of brick that is available is sort of a minimum amount. And if.
If we need more, we'll get it.
If you need more, well, you're probably gonna be using,
Yeah, so we're not asking,
yeah,
between us.
but I would assume that he would be able to, he's probably not gonna have as much brick. At the end of the day, Steve, you were really suggesting that he's not gonna have, it's gonna be really expensive to reuse that brick.
Right.
Yes?
It
At
is,
the very
it's
least.
more expensive.
So, does anyone have any issues with the massing, maybe other than myself?
With the massing of the two-story structure that's within zoning law.
That's not what I asked.
Well, it's a tiny footprint, 2 stories tall.
It's the height, it's not the mass, I should say. Maybe I should clarify, it's not the mass, it's the height that I find just kind of oddly placed, which was why I wanted to see the site plan. as it sits today, it sits further back from that rear corner of the home, so it's not, it's not kind of engulfing the primary residence, if you will. So with that being said, if we don't have an issue with the height, with its proximity to the rear of that rear, because again, that rear of the home is the furthest back from the front elevation. So unfortunately, if that two-story structure could be here and flip-flopped, and I get the zoning and all that, but brick is a very hard type material in comparison to other materials that might give a softer presence, which is why I kind of asked, does anyone have an issue with the actual mass? I said massing, but I should have said height. I love the idea of reusing the brick. I also know the reality, and we know there's going to be a spoilage, if you will. And so I almost like potentially the idea of an alternative material with maybe brick accents, or, you know, again, just kind of talking this through, but you guys are the designers, not me. I'm just, that much brick to me is just gonna be like almost overwhelming on that corner. It's gonna be a
But-
ton of brick.
But the new primary, the corner that's brick, is the southwest corner, far away from the main house. So,
I get it.
it kind of ties in the coloration from the main house, but the corner of the house that's adjusting, or that's adjacent to the house is a painted, you know, board siding. So, no, I think it's actually, you know, it kind of anchors that end of the site, that end of the property, with a little brick tower, and no, I don't have a problem.
And furthermore, on the matter of the height, we've seen numerous times in other projects in other historic districts where we would have a traditionally inspired primary dwelling and either an addition to or an accessory for behind it that's a two-story building, which is essentially the same thing here. The only difference is that this is a corner lot, so you have this side here, which is, you know, has its own primary face on a right-of-way. So this needs to be handled with a little bit of care. And I can see how he's using this to break it up in terms of materiality. I agree with the anchoring of the far corner of the site. I think that's an appropriate measure that happens here. So I'm not that terribly concerned with that here at all.
I'm way more concerned with the window proportions.
Yeah, I mean, they, especially this elevation, and unfortunately, he told us what's behind that wall, so I don't know how you get around it.
Again, I think you make them a little more consistent with each other, and not all 8, you know, like you said, 8 different windows out of 13 windows.
Oh,
Yeah.
I get it.
So I think, you know, that's doable.
I have a concern about where the brick terminates. I'm assuming that the brick is going to terminate, looking at that two-story element, I'm assuming that brick is going to terminate when it goes back. It's going to go around the corner and go back to the wall that has the frame on it.
We didn't ask that question, but I
Yeah.
think we could probably put that in as a,
Because you really want to see that as a volume and not just as a,
Like a bay.
yeah,
you want some form of return there for sure.
yeah.
Right, right.
think I think it does show it goes around the corner on the, I guess it's the south side. It goes around the corner.
And stops at a vertical board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, again, by looking at the home, the sizes may be a little off, but the coloring of the brick, I think can be very closely matched.
Mhm. Well, there's always that, it's either has to be closely matched, or it's brick, but it's very different.
Completely
But it's
different.
still brick.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like,
Right.
you don't want it to look like they almost got it in mist.
Right, right. That's far worse.
Yep.
Right. And it could even be something as simple as a different course. You know, do a different kind of coursing. Could be the same brick with a different coursing, and that makes it different.
So
All right.
we have a motion by anyone?
Anybody take good notes? I don't take good notes.
I can't do it.
So we're not gonna make a comment about the brick in terms of coordination purposes. It's a done deal. If he has to do some wiggle room, he's gonna be dealing with staff.
Well, I think it should be included in there that he gets staff approval if the brick deviates from the presented documents.
Allow me to make a shot at this, please. Move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 23-202 for the property located at 505 and 505 and a half East Palm Avenue in the Tampa Heights Historic District. Based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Tampa Heights Historic District Design Guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons, with the following conditions. That one, should there be a significant deviation in the use of or reuse of brick for the accessory and the primary two structure, that coordination be made with staff on that matter. That the candidate consider and coordinate with staff window sizes and proportion for the primary two structure. That soffits on primary one structure, including to be ceilings for the porch area be of a wood material consistent with the period, and that the applicant coordinate with staff exterior fan and exterior deck, if also necessary, porch finishes.
I second the motion.
All right, before we vote, do you understand the conditions?
I understand the conditions and we're fine with them, thank you.
Okay. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Congratulations.
Thank you, appreciate it. Short night for you guys, I guess.
All right,
I guess we're continuing
the next item, I guess we'll get direction.
Good evening, Commissioner. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. It appears that we do not have an applicant present for the last case, ARC 23-350. So staff is unaware of why that is. We recommend that the case be continued as such to the December 4th, 2023 public hearing at 5:30 p.m.
I'll move to continue ARC 23-350, located at 817 South Oregon Avenue, to the December 4th public hearing at 5:30 p.m.
I second the motion.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
There is no need to have a motion to receive and file the exhibits at this hearing. We may do that on Wednesday, but We didn't receive any additional exhibits this evening.
With that said, we will adjourn.
Rah, rah.